I'm gonna smoke a brisket on my Weber kettle in Slow N Sear, and to mix things up, I'm gonna be using the Chud Foil Boat Method. So if you don't know what that is, make sure to stick around to the end. Now, full transparency here, I have never smoked a brisket on the Weber kettle before, but I have a feeling it's gonna turn out great. So let's get to it. Okay, so I'm working with a 10-pound brisket I got from Costco. This is a prime brisket, and oh my goodness. So the brisket market is like insane right now. So at the time when I got my last brisket, I told myself, should I buy a second brisket and freeze it? Because it was at about $3.60 a pound. Well, guess what? 1 month later, we're looking at $5.19 a pound. But anyways, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut this thing open. So I'm starting on the fat side first because I wanna make sure that I cut off as much from the fat cap because that's where we're gonna do the most work and do that before the fat starts melting in my hands. So I actually put this in the freezer for about an hour and it's actually kind of frosted on the point and some parts on the flat, but I think it'll be fine. The fat should stay hardened. I should be able to cut through it pretty easily, which is gonna be really helpful because I have a really cheap knife. But anyways, I'm gonna flip this thing over because the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start on this mohawk. So when I went to Costco and I was looking at the briskets, I wanted to make sure that I had a brisket that had the mohawk intact because I want to keep the mohawk on for this cook. So first trim is we're going to do the scoop of fat right here so that we can open up the mohawk and then be able to cut out the fat from under it. Cut off a little bit more of the mohawk than I wanted to, but it's all good. Okay, next I'm going to get this fat that's right under the mohawk. So I'm just going to cut it down. Okay, so I'm done with the mohawk. So I have this beautiful flap of meat, and this right here is gonna produce some incredible burnt ends, so I'm very excited for this. This brisket is pretty uneven, so I definitely wanna shape out this part right here, but at the same time, I also wanna give it like that cool round shape so that nothing burns, there's no edges, and everything's good. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna start right here on the mohawk. I'm gonna cut down, swerve around, and kind of do the same here and cut off some of this gray meat at the same time. And just FYI, this piece right here, I learned from Texicana BBQ that you can actually cut off the meat here and you can make beef jerky out of this. So I'm gonna actually start saving these, freezing them, and maybe once I collect enough, I'm gonna do a beef jerky video. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. Ooh, getting wrecked by the sun right now. Let me try and move my operation over. Okay. Yeah, I was able to get rid of a lot of the gray meat on this side. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut down the fat cap to about 1/4 of an inch. I'll go ahead and start on the flat side. Okay, so that's all I wanted to do with the flat, but full transparency, I scalped the heck out of it right here. But hey, I'm a barbecue beginner. You live and you learn, it's all good. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and cut down the point. Okay, I am done with the fat side. Anyways, let's flip this thing over. Okay, so the only thing I'm really gonna do is this decal fat right here. So I'm just gonna carve this down. So I'm not gonna worry too much about like the little bit of silver skin that's on it, but I am gonna cut down this big patch right here. I mean, despite the scalping, not a bad job. So again, the main thing I really wanted was this mohawk right here because we're gonna take care of this thing and this is gonna produce some beautiful burnt ends. But anyways, we are ready to go ahead and season this thing. So again, because I wasn't super meticulous about how I cut off the silver skin, I'm gonna use a binder this time. So I am actually going to use soy sauce as a binder because why the heck not, right? So fun fact, when I trimmed brisket like Jirby in that video I did a couple months ago, I actually used soy sauce as a binder and came out pretty good. Now, I don't think you can really taste the binder, so just use whatever you have. I mean, heck, you can probably use water. So if you've watched any of my recent brisket videos, then you probably already know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be doing this Jirby style. So that means pepper, salt, Lawry's in that order. and this brisket is ready for the pit. So it's actually Friday night, so that's pretty much all I'm gonna do for today. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick this brisket in the fridge, and then I'm gonna start cooking it first thing tomorrow morning. So see y'all then.
3, 2, 1, go!
Okay, so it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and I went ahead and set up the pit with the Slow N Sear, and I am using cowboy lump charcoal. So I picked this stuff up from Costco. I've never actually used lump charcoal before, but it was a pretty good deal. And on top of that, I've heard that lump charcoal is supposed to last longer than briquettes. This may be a mistake, because what I also forgot about lump charcoal is it burns really hot. Also, I'm using pecan and hickory chunks, and this time around I made sure to put the wood chunks kind of in the back, as far away from the meat as possible. So I put it kind of like around the perimeter of the lid. So I'm planning to cook this brisket between 250 and 275, but again, with the lump charcoal, this might end up being a hot and fast cook, but we'll just roll with the punches. But anyways, the pit's ready, so I'm gonna throw this thing on. So the Slow N Sear and the Weber kettle kind of operate like a offset smoker, where basically the smoke will travel over the meat and out of the vent. So because of that, I decided to go fat side up. So another point that I did was that I made sure that this mohawk is as far away from the flames as possible, because again, I do not want this mohawk to burn. We will see how this looks in a couple of hours. Okay, so it's been about 3 hours and the crust is starting to set. So I'm gonna start spraying it every about 30 minutes or so. Again, this is fat side up, so I do not want to spray the fat too much. I just want to get the edges, especially this mohawk that I was talking about right here. Definitely don't want that to burn. But also the side of the brisket that's facing the charcoals, I definitely want to spray that side and the edges. Just the parts of the brisket that are really starting to crisp up, we want to make sure that we're spraying that every 20 minutes or so until the crust is fully set, and then we will be ready to wrap this thing. Okay, so it's just about 1:30, so the brisket has been on for about 5 hours, give or take. Anyways, it is now time to wrap, because the bark is set, and also the flat is temping at about 165, so we are currently in the stall. So we are going to be doing the aforementioned Chud boat, and I'm gonna show you exactly what that looks like. Okay, so as you see, our brisket is here. It's looking mighty fine. The bark is set very nicely. However, because I scalped it so bad, I have a patch right here of where the moisture was pooling, and I kind of wrecked the bark. Tried to put some seasoning on it so that it could create more bark, and I kept lifting it up to drain out the juice, but it is what it is. You know, this is a backyard brisket, so I'm not gonna cry over, you know, a little patch in the brisket. This thing smells phenomenal, so I know it's gonna taste great. Anyways, again, so I'm gonna be doing the Chud Boat Method. So the reason why I'm calling this the Chud Boat Method is because I heard of this from Bradley Robinson from Chud Barbecue. So basically all we're gonna do is we're going to wrap this brisket on the sides, and I'm gonna make sure that I wrap this mohawk as well so that it doesn't burn. But basically I'm trying to leave the top of the fat cap exposed so that that bark can really get nice and dark, and at the same time the wrap is going to cook the flat from the inside, so underneath. And this is just an alternative way to basically wrap your brisket instead of using butcher paper. This is my first time doing it, but I watched Bradley's video. I thought it looked great, so I'm excited to give it a try. All right, boat complete. Okay, so the brisket is back on the kettle grill. I again have it in the Chud boat. It's going to just, at this point, continue to develop that bark on the top of the brisket, but at the same time accelerate the cook of the flat and the point from underneath. So 3.5 hours into the Chud boat, and this brisket is ready. As you can see, this bark is insane, except for this part because again, I scalped it, but it's fine. Yeah, let me just show you just how soft and sticky this fat is. It's insane, really. Man. Let me show you this mohawk too. Yeah, these bites are going to be absolutely delicious. So I went ahead and pulled the brisket and then wrapped it in butcher paper, and now it's just hanging out inside of a cooler to rest for a couple of hours. And once it's done resting, we'll see how it turned out. Okay, wow, I am very impressed with the Slow N Sear and Weber kettle. This brisket came out beautifully, and that Chud boat, oh my goodness, I've never had bark this dark before on a brisket, so very impressed. So thank you, Bradley, for your method. So I wasn't super impressed with the smoke ring I got from this brisket. It's probably no fault of the cooker. Again, this was my first brisket, but I don't know, maybe I'm not alone on this. So if you have trouble getting a smoke ring on your Weber kettle when you make brisket, then let me know in the comments. Anyways, I'm gonna try this brisket and I'm gonna take a piece from that mohawk that we were babying this whole time. I am so excited to try this. Cheers. Wow. So if you enjoyed this video, I know you're gonna love watching me cook a brisket on a Weber Smoky Mountain 14-inch. So check out the video on your screen right now.